Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan.
And I'm Hem Khorsara, and on the show today, in the latest from West Asia, the Israeli army claims to have eliminated the Hezbollah commander who they say was responsible for overseeing the group's finances in Syria. As per the Israeli army spokesperson, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, the commander was killed in targeted strikes in Syria. We'll bring you, of course, all the updates from West Asia on the show today.
Also on World DNA, the BRICS Summit begins in Kazan, and this is the first summit since the expansion of BRICS in January this year. All eyes are on the possible bilateral meetings of Prime Minister Modi during this summit. We will be bringing you all the updates from there. This and a lot more lined up for you right here on World DNA. Let's start with the headlines.
Israeli military conducts 30 new strikes on Beirut's southern suburbs, reports Lebanese state media, claims child among 4 killed in strikes near a hospital.
US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken embarks on latest West Asia tour for a new push for an elusive Gaza ceasefire, days after Israel killed Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi leaves from Delhi for Russia to attend the 16th BRICS Summit being held in Kazan under the chairmanship of Russia.
China said it would carry out live-fire drills in the Taiwan Strait today, 2 days after US and Canadian warships sailed through the contentious waterway following Beijing's massive military exercise just a week ago.
The Kurdistan Democratic Party emerges as the leading party in the long-awaited Iraqi Kurdish parliamentary election.
Hurricane Oscar leaves at least 6 people dead in Cuba. Electricity restored in most part of the capital Havana 4 days after a nationwide blackout.
Familiar, así como a Instanar Cubano de Noticias.
TGL, the technology-driven golf competition headlined by Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy, will debut on the 7th of January. The 15-time major winner is scheduled to compete in the second week of the competition. Our top focus this morning, the Israeli army said that the Hezbollah commander responsible for funding the Lebanese group has been killed in Syria.
Well, the man whose name has not been released headed Hezbollah's Unit 4400 that is responsible for transferring funds to the group through Tehran's oil sales. Now, Israeli army spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said the unit was previously led by Mohammad Jafar Qasir, who was killed in a targeted attack on Beirut in October.
Between Sunday and Monday, the Israeli Defense Forces targeted around 30 sites belonging to Hezbollah's financial arm, Al-Qard al-Hassan. The Israeli army conducted more than a dozen strikes on various South Beirut districts, including Har Tariq, south of Uzai and Hadat.
As per local media reports, the strike came closely after the warning, leaving no room for people to escape. Now, according to the IDF, its troops hit a Hezbollah bunker under a hospital in Beirut, holding tens of millions of dollars worth of cash and gold during a series of strikes aimed at the group's financial network.
I am going to declassify intelligence on a site that we did not strike, where Hezbollah has millions of dollars in gold and cash. In Hassan Nasrallah's bunker. Where is the bunker located? Directly under El Sahel Hospital, in the heart of Beirut, in the Dahia. This is the bunker. It contains rooms, beds, and infrastructure for long stays, and the ability to direct combat from underground. Hezbollah built this bunker directly underneath this hospital. There are hundreds of millions of dollars in cash and gold inside the bunker right now.
Lebanese Health Ministry has denied these claims. The ministry said 4 people, including a child, were killed on Monday as IDF strikes hit the entrance to a hospital in South Beirut that receives a large number of patients.
In Israel's Daliat al-Kamel, hundreds of people attended the funeral of Israeli Army Colonel Ehsan Daksar, the commander of the 401st Brigade, who was killed in the Jabalia area when an explosive struck him. He was one of the most senior army commanders killed in the year-long Gaza war. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken headed back to the West Asia region on Monday on a new push for Gaza ceasefire. Now, the State Department said that the aim of this trip is securing the release of all hostages and alleviating the suffering of the Palestinian people.
The Secretary will reaffirm the United States' ironclad commitment to Israel's security and emphasize advancing enduring peace and security for Israelis and Palestinians alike. Throughout the region.
Furthermore, Hamas sources say the Palestinian group is moving towards appointing a Doha-based ruling committee rather than a single successor to its chief Yahya Sinwar, who was killed by Israeli troops last week. The approach is not to appoint a successor to Sinwar until next elections scheduled for March.
A 5-member committee that was formed in August following Ismail Haniyeh's assassination will take over the leadership of the group. In other development, Iran on Monday warned the United States that it will bear full responsibility in case of a retaliatory attack by Israel on the Islamic Republic of Iran, after US President Joe Biden indicated that he was aware of Israeli plans to do so.
Now, the reaction comes after the report that the US administration is investigating an unauthorized release of classified documents that assessed Israel's plans to attack Iran. The White House said President Biden still has complete confidence in his agencies.
What I will say is the president continues to have complete confidence in his in the agencies, right? Whether it's DOD, IC, or DOJ, and he has complete confidence in them. There is this is being looked into, investigation being done by the appropriate parties, and I'm not going to get into it.
All right, and for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us a report from New York. Listen to this.
The White House says that President Biden is, quote, deeply concerned about the possibility of leaked classified U.S. intelligence detailing Israel's possible attack against Iran. The Pentagon said that it's investigating the leak, which surfaced on the platform Telegram over the weekend, but it's unclear whether or not those documents were hacked or deliberately leaked. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby confirmed the investigation and said that President Biden, quote unquote, is actively monitoring the process. The leaked documents, marked top secret, appear to show Israel's retaliation plans against Iran, including weapon positioning. The White House and federal agencies are now working to determine the source of the leak, which has significant implications not only on U.S.-Israel relations, but on national security issues as well here at home. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World This One.
And celebrations have begun as the Kurdish Democratic Party emerged as the front-runner in the recently concluded elections in Iraq's autonomous region of Kurdistan.
People hit the streets, they waved flags and they set fireworks on the streets as voting returned in the region for the first time after 2018. The preliminary results indicate Kurdistan Democratic Party's significant lead over its rival, the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan. With over 800,000 votes tallied so far, the KDP appears poised to maintain its dominant position in the region.
As per the Electoral Commission report, the Kurdistan Democratic Party is leading by a ratio of 2-to-1 votes against the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan. Another opposition party, that's the New Generation Movement, is at the third position with 200,000 votes. However, the exact number of parliamentary seats each party will hold remains undisclosed as final results are still pending.
The voter turnout was reported at 72%, which is a significant increase from the 59% turnout which was seen in the 2018 elections. However, political experts fear that the ongoing rivalry between the Kurdish Democratic Party and the Patriotic Union could complicate the efforts to establish a stable government. Meanwhile, the United States has urged both political parties to engage in dialogue to swiftly form a stable and representative government in the region. Russia-Ukraine updates next. Britain will lend Ukraine $2.94 billion as part of a much larger planned loan from the group of 7 nations.
The G7 announced that in June it would provide a $50 billion loan to help Ukraine, and it would be serviced by profits generated by about $300 billion in Russian sovereign assets immobilized in the West.
These assets were frozen shortly after Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Now, UK's Defence Minister John Healey said the country's share of the G7 loan had been a feature of talks between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Prime Minister Keir Starmer in London 2 weeks ago. Also, that of the G7 foreign ministers meet over the weekend, UK's announcement of aid follows that of US. While in Kiev, US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced a $400 million aid package for Ukraine. Austin framed the current battle as a fight between the West against Russia, North Korea and Iran, calling it a hinge in history.
So we must continue to squarely face, the specter of an aggressive Russia, backed by other autocrats from North Korea and Iran. If Ukraine falls under Putin's boot, all of Europe will fall under Putin's shadow.
Meanwhile, the US told the United Nations Security Council that it would be a dangerous and concerning development if North Korea is sending soldiers to fight alongside Russia in Ukraine.
If Russia is indeed turning to the DPRK for manpower, it would be a sign of desperation on the part of the Kremlin. We know Russia is suffering extraordinary casualties on the battlefield due to the bravery and effectiveness of the Ukrainian military.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin will meet UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in Moscow on Thursday to discuss the Ukraine conflict. Now, the meeting will take place on the sidelines of the BRICS Summit in the central Russian city of Kazan, a forum Moscow hopes to use to show the West that attempts to isolate Russia over the Ukraine offensive have failed.
Meanwhile, tensions persist on the battlefield. On Monday, Russian attack killed 3 people in the southern Ukrainian city of Zaporizhzhia and 3 in the Donetsk region near the front line.
The Russia-North Korea alliance is extending beyond military supplies and ammunition to North Korean boots on the ground fighting for Russia and Ukraine.
All of which is being greeted by a volley of condemnation from the West. Here's more. Take a look.
It's a relationship that's expanded leaps and bounds since Putin met Kim in June and signed a military assistance pact. The West has frequently expressed concern and censure. So when Ukraine puts out word of 1,500 North Korean troops in Russia to be deployed for ground warfare inside Ukraine, the flutter multiplies. North Korean soldiers are said to be receiving training before being sent to the front line, possibly by early next month. NATO and South Korea have hit out. The US, UK, France and others have raised concern. Ukrainian President Zelensky says 10,000 North Korean troops are to be moved in, calling it an urgent development he has raised with the White House. Moscow, of course, rubbishes the reports and the censure.
North Korea, the Korean People's Democratic Republic, is our close neighbor, our partner. We develop our relations in all spheres. This is our sovereign right. Nobody should be concerned about it because this cooperation is not directed against the third countries. We are going to develop this cooperation further on.
Beyond NATO concerns on the Ukraine conflict and claims of escalation, there's the North Korea-South Korea dimension. South Korea summoned the Russian ambassador in Seoul to register strong protest. It termed the moves illegal and demanded immediate reversals.
North Korea's involvement in Russia's invasion war is a violation of UN resolutions and should be condemned as an illegal act by the international community. Furthermore, it poses a serious threat to our national security and safety of our people.
For Kim, the gains of sending troops to the Ukrainian front lines are huge. Tops, of course, is cementing the Pyongyang-Moscow alliance, besides the financial and military gain. Providing hardware and possible manpower for the Russian army almost certainly comes with a quid pro quo it needs. All of which imparts a new possible dimension to the Russia-Ukraine war. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Moving on now, President Paul Biya has returned to Cameroon after several weeks out of the country amid rumours about his health.
The state broadcaster showed Biya landing at the capital's international airport and shaking hands with officials next to his wife. According to CRTV, the West African nation's 91-year-old leader was greeted by supporters wearing outfits displaying his portrait. They chanted to the beat of a drum and lined the roads as his motorcade swiftly left the airport for the presidential palace. Aircraft flight tracking sites showed that a Boeing with aircraft registration CMR001 previously used to transport Biya left late on Monday morning from Geneva, where official sources said he had been residing for several weeks.
Questions about Biya's health and whereabouts grew when he disappeared from public view after leaving Beijing at the beginning of September following a China-Africa Cooperation Summit. On the 8th of October, after consistent rumours about Biya, the government released a statement saying he would be back in the country in the next few days. The Cameroonian leader also did not participate in the United Nations General Assembly in New York, nor a summit for French-speaking countries in Paris.
Large posters also appeared in the Cameroonian capital welcoming him back. Biya has ruled the country unchallenged for more than 41 years. He's only the second in Africa, only to 82-year-old Teodoro Obiang Nguema, who has held power in Equatorial Guinea for 45 years. He has not picked a successor and not ruled out running again in the next presidential elections in October 2025. Nearly 200 countries will be debating how they can save nature from the current rapid rate of destruction at the UN Biodiversity Summit.
Also known as COP16 in the Colombian city of Cali, the next report details what to watch out for at the summit this time around. Take a look.
The UN Biodiversity Summit, also known as COP16, is being held in Colombia this month. Nearly 200 countries will be debating how to save nature from the current rapid rate of destruction. Here's what you need to know. At COP15 2 years ago, countries agreed on more than 24 global goals. The agreement was called the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. It includes things like setting aside 30% of the earth for conservation and mobilizing $200 billion in nature financing. Countries are expected to submit their plans to meet those goals by the start of COP16. That'll gauge how much progress has been made since 2022 and what needs to be prioritized going forward. Host country Colombia has put the inclusion of indigenous and traditional communities at the center of its agenda. The UN Office for the Conservation on Biodiversity has called for special protections for indigenous groups in voluntary isolation, stressing these communities' role in protecting nature. COP16 will look to finalize a new program, including traditional knowledge in national conservation plans and decisions. Wealthy nations previously agreed to contribute at least $20 billion annually, starting in 2025. The money would help developing countries meet their nature goals. So far, biodiversity aid has fallen short of those levels. Both governments and companies are expected to announce further funding efforts at COP16.
And junior doctors in the Indian state of West Bengal have ended their hunger strike after meeting with Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee.
The agitating doctors have been on a hunger strike for the past 2 weeks, demanding justice in the Kolkata rape and murder case. The agitating doctors also announced to withdraw the proposed complete strike, including the senior medical practitioners scheduled for Tuesday. The protesting doctors, however, maintained after their general body meeting that their movement over the issue will continue. 17 doctors from various Bengal medical colleges joined the meeting chaired by Mamata Banerjee at the state secretariat. The fresh round of talks come amid the impasse arising out of the rape and murder of a junior doctor at the R.G. Kaur Medical College and Hospital in August.
Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee has urged the doctors to end their hunger strike. She told them that medical bodies and councils can only be changed through election process and there are set rules that can't be done away with. The junior doctors have been on a hunger strike for the past 2 weeks. 6 doctors have been hospitalized after deteriorating health, while 8 others continue their indefinite fast. And the Indian government is taking serious action to curb the growing menace of bomb hoax calls targeting flights.
Civil Aviation Minister K.M. Ram Mohan Naidu has announced plans to amend legislation and introduced harsher punishments to deter these pranksters. Now, Indian Airlines received almost 100 fake bomb threats in the past week. Mostly, these were posted from anonymous social media accounts. Now, these threats have resulted in lengthy security checks and major disruptions, including a few flight diversions.
Now, the government is working on 2 key legislative measures to curb this. It is amending aircraft security rules to ban offenders from flying and expanding the Suppression of Unlawful Acts Against Safety of Civil Aviation Act to cover bomb threats, even when the aircraft are on the ground. This move will make hoax bomb threats a cognizable offence, involving jail time and heavy fines.
Minister Naidu said that interministerial consultations will begin soon as the government is keen to implement the changes as quickly as possible. In response to the threats, airport security has been stepped up with a 10% increase in security checkpoints and improved CCTV coverage. The Bureau of Civil Aviation, Security and other agencies are working together to assess these threats case by case. South India's population is aging, and the way out, says a concerned Andhra Pradesh State Chief Minister, is for families to have more children.
And to help them in this, Andhra Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu says his government is considering legislation to incentivize larger families focused on what it calls population management efforts. The Andhra government is considering a law to consider only people with more than 2 children eligible to contest local body elections.
Groundwork for this was laid in August when the Andhra Pradesh government repealed an existing law that barred individuals with more than 2 children from contesting local elections. Pointing to the demographic challenges for the southern states, Naidu has pointed out the fertility rate that has dropped to 1.6, well below the national average of 2.1. He adds that while South India has a demographic advantage till 2047, signs of an aging population are already visible. The government's effort to provide more benefits to families with more children, Naidu says, is in line with countries like Japan, China and parts of Europe.
He also highlighted concern in the villages in Andhra Pradesh, where he said only elderly people remain while the younger population has moved to cities. Notably, Naidu in his previous tenure as CM had offered incentives to couples willing to have more than 2 children. He has warned against the state becoming senile with more elderly citizens and fewer working hands by the mid-21st century.
According to the 2011 census, the median age of states in the south, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Telangana, is already higher than several northern states. The median age of Kerala was 31.9 years in 2011, followed by Tamil Nadu 29.9, Andhra Pradesh 27.6, Karnataka 27.4 and Telangana 26.7. In comparison, in states like Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, the median age was 21.5 and 19.9 years respectively.
And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. Lots more on the other side. Of course, this is World DNA. Haim and I will be back with you. On the other side, we'll bring you a complete report on the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Russia. Later in the day, he's attending the 16th BRICS Summit in Kazan.
India and China have arrived on a patrolling arrangement along the line of actual control. India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said this leads to disengagement and resolution of several issues.
Special business talk show where we bring forth the stories of business leaders.
From breakthrough technologies to visionary leadership, we will unlock the trends, the tactics, and dive into the minds of the industry's most influential leaders.
WION brings you this special series to uncover what drives them in a candid talk show, WION Business Masters.
YO1 Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to YO1 Health Resort. Make your reservation at yo1.com.
Besieged, Kenya's Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is ousted by the Senate, as senators approve country's Interior Minister Kithure Kindiki as the new DP. Gachagua blames his troubles on his now former running mate and President William Ruto, calling him a vicious man. Lawyer for a prominent Mozambique opposition figure, Venancio Mondlane, is shot and killed in the capital Maputo weeks after the country's general elections. Election watchdog claimed the killings were designed to intimidate anyone demanding transparency in the polls. And Ivory Coast sees a boom in nurseries as the West African nation's women increasingly go out to work. There are now 254 private creches and nurseries across Abidjan. Wild of Africa, at these times on WION, World is One.
High-stakes BRICS Summit in Kazan, Russia. Amid the wars and imbalances dominating geopolitics. All eyes on PM Modi as India's strategic autonomy will be on test. A rare window for Modi-Xi meet amid the border standoff. 5 new and 24 prospective members in line. An opportunity for Putin to showcase Russia's partnerships. To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. Lots lined up for you on this side of the show. Let's get started with the headlines first.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi leaves from Delhi to attend the 16th BRICS Summit being held in Kazan under the chairmanship of Russia.
China said it would carry out live fire drills in the Taiwan Strait today, 2 days after US and Canadian warships sailed through the contentious waterway following Beijing's massive military exercise a week ago.
US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken embarks on the latest West Asia tour for a new push for an elusive Gaza ceasefire, days after Israel killed Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar.
Israel says commander responsible for funding Hezbollah killed in Syria accuses Hezbollah of keeping hundreds of millions of dollars in cash and gold in a bunker under a hospital in Beirut.
Hurricane Oscar leaves at least 6 people dead in Cuba. Electricity restored in most parts of capital Havana 4 days after a nationwide blackout.
TGL, the technology-driven golf competition headlined by Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy, will debut on the 7th of January. The 15-time major winner is scheduled to compete in the second week of the competition. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi left from New Delhi to Russia to attend the 16th BRICS Summit in Kazan.
In a statement before leaving for Kazan, Prime Minister Modi said that India values the close cooperation within BRICS, which has emerged as an important platform for dialogue and discussion on issues. He added that the expansion of BRICS with the addition of new members last year has added to its inclusivity and its agenda for the global good. The summit this year is themed Strengthening Multilateralism for Just Global Development and Security. This year's summit will see participation from BRICS founding members, nations, of course, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. alongside new members, which includes Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran and the UAE.
Leaders are expected to discuss ongoing collaborations and strategize for future projects that promote development and security. Amidst the rising global tensions, all eyes will be on a potential meeting between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping. Prime Minister Modi will also meet the Russian President Putin on the sidelines of the BRICS Summit.
India's Ministry of External Affairs on Monday said that some of the key agendas of the meet include expansion of economic cooperation, trade settlement in national currencies, sustainable development, particularly PM Modi's life mission to address the problems of climate change.
As per the MEA, India and China also negotiated a patrolling deal along the line of actual control after 4 years of discussions. Meanwhile, Russia has released 85 Indian nationals from its military camp ahead of the summit.
Forum. Today, the business community met.
In a big breakthrough, India and China have arrived on a patrolling arrangement along the line of actual control.
India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said this leads to disengagement and a resolution of issues that sparked trouble in the region in 2020.
Now, after the 2020 border skirmish in eastern Ladakh, both sides had agreed not to send patrols along the line of actual control. Misri said over the last few weeks, Indian and Chinese negotiators had been in touch to reach an agreement on patrolling arrangements aimed at reducing tensions.
Over the last several weeks, Indian and Chinese diplomatic and military negotiators have been in close contact with each other in a variety of forums. And as a result of these discussions, agreement has been arrived at on patrolling arrangements along the line of actual control in the India-China border areas, leading to disengagement and a resolution of the issues that had arisen in these areas in 2020. And we will be taking the next steps on this.
Relations between India and China have soured since the June 2020 clashes in eastern Ladakh's Kalwan that resulted in the death of 20 Indian soldiers, while some areas still remained to be de-escalated after Indian and Chinese troops withdrew from the Gogra hot springs in Ladakh in September 2022. Chinese soldiers are still believed to hold large swathes of Indian territory to the north in the Depsang Plains.
Now, according to reports, India and China have held 21 Corps Commander level meetings on disengagement in the remaining areas along the LAC in eastern Ladakh to restore peace. In July this year, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held talks on LAC with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Jaishankar stressed that it was important that the LAC is respected for peace and tranquility in the border areas.
On the 12th of September, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval met with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese Foreign Minister and Special Representative Wang Yi on the sidelines of the BRICS NSA's meeting in St. Petersburg. It was learned that NSA Doval discussed military disengagement on the line of actual control with China on top priority. The latest breakthrough in talks comes ahead of a possible meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the BRICS Summit in Russia. All right, now as this thaw comes about, how will relations pan out going forward? That is something WION's assistant editor for Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibal, has sent us a report on. Let's listen to this.
It will be a big day today when the Indian Prime Minister reaches here in Kazan. The big focus, of course, remains not only his attendance at the BRICS Summit, but also his bilateral meetings. He meets with the Russian President, but will he meet with the Chinese President Xi Jinping? Now, we know the Indian Foreign Secretary making that big announcement on the agreement when it comes to patrolling, that leading to, of course, situation at the LAC normalizing. And the Indian LAC played an important role in that. He was holding conversations earlier, the Indian External Affairs Minister as well. But essentially, any bilateral meeting here in Kazan will be seen as a major positive development in India-China relationship. We know relationship has been going downhill since the Galwan incident, in which India lost many of its soldiers, and since then India had said that whatever happens at the border impacts the wider relationship. But it looks like both sides have been maturely able to have conversation and resolve their issues and made sure that differences do not become disputes. With video journalist Ajit Siddhantsipal for WION in Kazan, Russia.
Days after a joint naval operation by the United States and Canada in the Taiwan Strait, China has said that it would carry out live fire drills in the contested waters.
Now, the Maritime Safety Administration MSA in southeast city of Pingtang announced that the gun firing would take place in limited area in the waters near Neoshan Island from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. local time. Sitting east of Pingtang Island, Neoshan Island is only 165 kilometers from Taipei, the Taiwanese capital. MSA's statement specified that ships would be prohibited from entering the area of firing, encompassing about 150 square kilometers. However, the statement did not say which Chinese force would be carrying out the live firing or its objectives.
Taiwan's defense ministry said that though the Chinese live firing is part of routine annual drills, it could also possibly be China's deterrence effect in the waters of the Taiwan Strait. Over the weekend, USS Higgins, a US Navy destroyer, and a Canadian frigate HMC Vancouver sailed through the Taiwan Strait after China conducted military exercises in the region on the 14th of October. Beijing described it as a warning against separatist activities. As part of the exercise, a record number of Chinese military aircraft as well as warships and Coast Guard vessels encircled Taiwan. In response to the exercises, Taiwan deployed appropriate forces and put outlying islands on heightened alert.
Now, international airlines are scaling back their flights to China as Chinese carriers gain a competitive edge by flying over Russian airspace.
With Western airlines banned from using this route due to the Ukraine war, Chinese carriers are saving up to 3 hours of travel time and as much as $50,000 per trip. UK-based Virgin Atlantic and British Airways are among the airlines halting their China routes this month, citing competition and a drop in demand.
Other airlines like Delta and Lufthansa are also reconsidering their China operations. Competition from Chinese carriers isn't the only factor driving these cutbacks. China's economic slowdown is another key reason. The country's GDP growth slowed to 4.6% in the third quarter, dampening business travel demand.
This decline in business travel is particularly affecting Western airlines, which traditionally rely on these passengers for China routes. The reduction is evident in the 27.3% drop in China-US direct flights compared to October of 2019. Analysts say this reflects the broader economic uncertainty in China, especially for Western businesses. While Western airlines scale back, Chinese carriers continue to expand, leveraging routes through Russia and offering lower fares. Hainan Airlines, for example, recently launched a new flight from Haikou to Seattle.
Meanwhile, Delta has postponed plans to resume its Shanghai-Los Angeles route until June next year. Analysts suggest that with reduced business travel and increased competition, Western airlines are choosing to deploy their aircraft on more profitable routes, like transatlantic flights, leaving China's airspace increasingly dominated by local carriers.
A group of 52 US lawmakers from both parties are urging the Biden administration to impose stricter sanctions on Russian oil shipments.
And in a letter to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and Secretary of State Antony Blinken, they question the exception allowing SLB, the world's largest oil field services company, to continue operating in Russia.
Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Western sanctions have aimed to cut off Moscow's energy revenue. However, SLB remains active. helping sustain Russian oil production, while other companies have exited the market. The lawmakers highlight that SLB, despite the sanctions, has continued to expand its presence in Russia since the war began. The US-based company has signed new contracts, recruited hundreds of employees, and imported nearly $18 million worth of equipment into the country. The representatives argue that this allows Russia to maintain its oil output and fund its ongoing war against Ukraine. SLB earned 5% of its global revenue from Russia last year and had 10,000 employees operating in the region at the start of the conflict.
The lawmakers argue that allowing SLB to operate in Russia undermines the effectiveness of Western sanctions. They stress that while Russian oil is a crucial part of the global supply chain, SLB's continued involvement with advanced technology and expertise strengthens Russia's oil sector, making it resilient to sanctions. This prolongs the war's financing, they claim. The US State and Treasury departments have yet to respond to the letter, and SLB has maintained that it has not violated any sanctions. All right, on to developments now from the world of technology. If you're a Microsoft customer, you will soon be able to build your own AI agent. The company has announced that starting November, Microsoft will allow its customers to build autonomous artificial intelligence agents. Unlike chatbots, custom AI agents will need little to no human intervention and will be able to handle client queries, identify sales leads, and manage inventory, among other such activities.
Meanwhile, for starters, the company is also introducing 10 ready-for-use agents that can help with routine tasks ranging from managing supply chain to expense tracking and client communications. The move marks Microsoft's latest push to tap the booming technology amid growing investor scrutiny of its hefty AI investments.
Yahya Assiri, a prominent Saudi dissident who currently lives in exile in Britain, has been given a green light by his lawyers to sue Saudi Arabia in London. Founder of the National Assembly Party, Assiri has accused Saudi Arabia of targeting him with spyware between 2018 and 2020 and claims that Saudi Arabia used Pegasus and another spyware made by a lesser-known Israeli firm called Quadrine because of his work with other dissidents. The case is the latest spyware suit against a Gulf state to be heard by an English court.
Robot Era, a Chinese robotic startup, is claiming to have built the world's fastest humanoid robot called Star 1. The 5 feet 7 inch tall humanoid robot can reportedly run at a speed of nearly 13 kilometers per hour, weighing around 65 kilograms. In the video, 2 Star 1 robots can be seen running across the challenging terrains of the Gobi Desert in China. While one robot is seen running barefoot, another has a pair of sneakers on. Unlike most modern laptops, which typically handle between 45 and 55 trillion operations per second, the company claims that this AI-enabled robot is capable of processing 275 trillion operations per second. All right, from technology over to sports next. Here's what's happening. We'll start with the TGL, the technology-driven golf competition, which was headlined by Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy. It will debut on 7th of January. 15-time major winner Woods is scheduled to compete on the 14th of January with his Jupiter Links Golf Club team. The 48-year-old has not played since the Open Championship in July and had further surgery on his back last month. World number 3, McIlroy, who is part of the Boston Common Golf team, is set to make his debut on the 27th of January. The virtual contest had been slated for January 2024 launch but was delayed, and this is after a power outage caused the collapse of the air-supported dome roof at the Sophie Center in Florida.
Brazilian superstar Neymar made his long-awaited injury return after a year in a 9-goal thriller.